Caroline had been working as a nurse at a hospital for quite a long time. One day, she sat beside a dying patient and read a book to him just as he had requested. The moment she finished, he passed away. After his body was taken to the morgue, his belongings were packed up in case any family members came to claim them. But in the end, not a single relative showed up to take care of anything. When Caroline was about to throw his things away, she noticed that other patients' belongings had also been tossed into the trash. That was when it really hit her. So many people no longer cared about the lives of others, and even the hospital treated death like something routine. There was no emotion in it anymore because everything had become business. In the end, Caroline decided to quit her job at the hospital. She chose to become a private nurse instead after finding a newspaper listing that offered a very high salary. That night, Caroline met up with her friend Jill and told her that she had just resigned and was interested in the job ad. When Jill saw that the location was in Terrebonne Parish, she immediately remembered how the area was surrounded by eerie swamps. But Caroline did not see that as a problem for her. It was a chance to care for someone in her own way, and the money could be saved for nursing school. After calling the number, Caroline headed to Terrebonne Parish the next morning for an interview. The drive was not too far, and just as Jill had said, the area was filled with swamps. After passing down a narrow road lined with massive trees, she finally arrived at the house, an old place that looked like it had been standing there forever. The house belonged to an elderly couple named Ben and Violet. The person who had answered Caroline's call was Luke, the lawyer handling the couple's will and also helping them find a nurse. Luke explained that Caroline was needed to care for Ben, who had become paralyzed and had trouble speaking after suffering a stroke in the attic about a month earlier. According to the doctors, Ben probably only had about a month left to live. At the same time, Violet clearly did not seem to like Caroline, and even more strangely, she said Caroline would never be able to understand the house. After hearing that, Caroline nearly gave up on the job, but Luke calmed her down and told her that Ben truly needed help. He also explained that the last nurse had already quit and that Violet had rejected 4 other applicants before Caroline showed up. Caroline asked Luke what Violet meant when she said Caroline would never understand the house, but Luke had no idea either. As far as he knew, he was only there as their lawyer. Still, he promised that he would try to convince Violet to accept her. Eventually, Violet agreed, and the very next day, Caroline packed her things with Jill's help and headed for the house. On the way there, she stopped at a gas station because her fuel was running low. But as soon as she arrived, she noticed something strange. There was a line of red dust scattered in front of the store entrance, and the place itself felt completely deserted. Hello. Hello. Then out of nowhere, a blind woman suddenly appeared and startled her. When Caroline arrived at Violet's house, she immediately started settling into her room, arranging her belongings, including a photo of her with her father. But something quickly caught her attention. The mirror in her bathroom had been removed. And not just there, every mirror in the entire house was gone. Since she could not find Violet anywhere, Caroline decided to check on Ben, who was lying in bed. As she approached, he suddenly reached out and grabbed her hand. "You have to let go. Ben, you're hurting me. Ouch. There you are." Moments later, Violet appeared and began explaining Caroline's duties, giving him his crushed medication every morning at 9 o'clock and every evening at 7, bathing him, and regularly changing his bed sheets. Curious, Caroline asked how long they had been living in the house. Violet explained that they had moved in around 1962. The house originally belonged to a brother and sister named Martin and Grace, who had inherited from their parents. Due to financial difficulties, they were forced to sell it. Violet had kept their photographs as a form of respect. As Caroline looked through the photos when slipped out, it showed Martin and Grace with their parents, Papa Justify and Mama Cecile. What stood out immediately was that their skin tones were completely different. It made Caroline wonder if they had been adopted. Violet then explained that the house had 30 rooms in total, and every single one of them could be opened with a single key known as the skeleton key, including the attic where Ben kept his antique collection. She handed the key to Caroline, and that was where everything started. "This is the skeleton key. It's real." Caroline then asked about the missing mirrors. Violet simply said that she and Ben no longer needed them. They were old, and they had no interest in looking at their aging faces. The conversation continued casually. Despite her age, Violet was a heavy smoker. Caroline, on the other hand, opened up about her own past, how her mother had left when she was a child, and how her father had passed away just the year before. The next morning, Caroline officially began her work. She bathed Ben, helped him get dressed, and brought him downstairs, using a lift so he could relax outside while Violet tended to her garden. As they talked about religion, Caroline revealed that she leaned more toward being skeptical, almost atheist. At one point, Violet asked her to retrieve some flower seeds from the attic. Using the skeleton key, Caroline entered the attic. But as she walked further in, she heard a strange noise coming from the far end of the room. When she went to check, she discovered a hidden door behind a stack of items. It looked like something on the other side was trying to force it open. She tried using the key, but it would not work. Just then, Violet suddenly appeared behind her, startling her. Caroline asked why the key could not open that door. Violet explained that the room had been sealed ever since they moved in, and no one really knew what was inside. That night, while Caroline was asleep, she suddenly woke up after hearing something shatter upstairs. She rushed to Ben's room only to find his bed empty. He had somehow climbed out through the window, crawling onto the roof before falling down. Right there, "Ben, don't move." Panicked, Caroline called for Violet from the room across the hall, and she was told to get the wheelchair. But as she grabbed it, something caught her eye. Written on Ben's blanket were the words asking for help. Without thinking, she quickly hid it. And when they finally brought Ben back inside, he locked eyes with Caroline in a way that felt intense and desperate, as if he was silently begging her to save him. The next morning, Luke came by the house. Caroline told him about what had happened the night before and planned to show him the blanket with the message asking for help. But strangely, the writing had completely disappeared. Caroline began to doubt herself, thinking maybe she had imagined it. As they continued talking, Caroline opened up about her past. She shared how she had dropped out of college after getting caught up with her band friends and rarely being at home. Her father had been angry, feeling that her life had no direction. Their arguments eventually pushed her to leave home, not long after she received the news that her father had passed away. That regret stayed with her, and it became the reason she chose to become a nurse, because she was not there for him when he needed her the most. Later that afternoon, while Violet was busy sweeping outside, Caroline quietly slipped into the attic, still suspicious about the hidden door. This time, she carefully tampered with the keyhole and discovered something blocking it from the inside. After removing it and trying the skeleton key again, the door finally opened. Inside, she found a collection of strange objects: twisted roots, strands of hair, a monkey skull, large stitched dolls, and a pile of rings. It all felt deeply unsettling. As she kept searching, Caroline came across a book filled with photographs, including pictures of Justify, Cecile, Martin, and Grace. But what shocked her even more was what she found next. Inside the book were written protection spells along with an audio recording labeled as a sacrifice ritual by Papa Justify. At that moment, it became clear that everything in that room was connected to some kind of dark magic. Meanwhile, Violet noticed that Caroline was nowhere to be found and went up to the attic. Caroline quickly hid, taking the recording with her. After Violet left, Caroline made another discovery. All the missing mirrors from the house had been stored there. Since the town was only about an hour away, Caroline decided to leave that night and visit Jill. She played the recording, which contained Justify pleading to be freed from a cursed house, asking to be released from darkness, sorrow, and a terrible curse. After that, Caroline suggested they go out and relax for a bit. As they spent time together, she told Jill everything that had happened in the house, including the hidden room in the attic. Jill believed that what Caroline had found was connected to hoodoo, a form of traditional folk magic practiced by people from African, European, and Native American backgrounds. Unlike voodoo, which is tied to religion, hoodoo was purely a practice of magic. According to rumors, it could be extremely dangerous because it affected the mind, but it would not work on someone who did not believe in it. Jill also mentioned that her Aunt Nola strongly believed in hoodoo. She often visited a certain laundromat, though no one really knew what she was doing there. That same night, Caroline returned to Violet's house. After tucking Ben into bed, she placed a mirror in his room. The next morning, Violet was shocked the moment she saw it. She immediately confronted Caroline for overstepping her boundaries. But this time, Caroline stood her ground. She revealed that she had already seen what was hidden in the attic and demanded to know the truth about the house. Otherwise, she was ready to walk away from the job. With no other choice, Violet finally told the story. Around 90 years ago, the house belonged to a wealthy banker named Thorp, who lived there with his family and 2 servants, Papa Justify and Mama Cecile. Thorp was known to be cruel, building his fortune by exploiting the poor. What his family never realized was that Justify and Cecile were practitioners of hoodoo. The attic had been their room, and also the place where they secretly performed rituals against those they considered evil. According to local rumors, the Thorp family treated them so harshly that everything came to a breaking point one night during a party filled with powerful and wealthy guests. That night, Thorp discovered that his children, Martin and Grace, had gone missing. The search led everyone to the attic where the children were found with Justify and Cecile learning hoodoo rituals. The reaction was immediate and intense. The crowd quickly turned against them. In the confusion, Justify's ring fell off. They were taken away by the crowd, and what followed left a lasting mark on the town. All that power reach. After that incident, Thorp's bank collapsed. Overwhelmed by despair, his life came to a tragic end along with his wife's. The townspeople believed it was the revenge of Justify and Cecile's spirits. Meanwhile, Martin and Grace continued living in the house until 1962, when they eventually sold it to Violet and Ben. However, they never explained why the attic room was locked or why mirrors were forbidden throughout the house. Violet believed that mirrors allowed the spirits of Justify and Cecile to be seen. She had also read that red brick dust could protect against danger, which was why she kept it stored in the house. Even after hearing all of that, Caroline remained skeptical. She did not believe in ghosts or magic. Later, while bathing Ben, some soapy water accidentally got into her eyes. As she wiped it away, she glanced into a small mirror. But Ben's reaction immediately stood out. He kept staring at the mirror intensely, wanting to test Violet's claim. Caroline held the mirror up in front of him. The moment he saw it, he suddenly became hysterical. After that, Caroline headed into town to meet Jill's aunt, Nola, at a laundromat. Inside, she discovered that it was actually a hidden space where Nola treated people using strange rituals. The place was filled with unusual objects, and there was red brick dust placed at the entrance. Caroline did not hesitate to speak her mind. She made it clear that she did not believe in magic, especially the idea that it could harm or heal someone. In her view, everything came down to suggestion. If someone believed they could be healed, then they might recover. And if they believed they were cursed, then they would suffer. She even mentioned someone she knew who had become paralyzed after believing they had been affected by magic, clearly referring to Ben. In the end, Nola gave Caroline several items along with a chance she could use to determine whether someone was truly under the influence of magic. She also shared a method that could potentially cure Ben. Caroline became convinced that if Ben believed he had been affected by magic, then perhaps the only way to save him was through magic as well. As soon as Caroline returned to the house, she began preparing the ritual exactly as Nola had instructed. She set up a bowl of water, lit a cross-shaped candle, and added the herbs and oil she had been given. Then she moved carefully around Ben, fanning him with a crow feather while sprinkling the water and reciting the chant to cleanse and bless the house. And then something unbelievable happened. Ben suddenly spoke, but he only had enough strength to ask for help, begging to be taken out of the house. He never got the chance to explain what was really happening or why he had his stroke in the attic because Violet arrived before he could say more. Caroline quickly hid everything and brushed it off as if she had only been telling him a simple story. That night, Caroline could not sleep. The images and voices of Justify and Cecile kept replaying in her mind. When she woke up from a nightmare, she glanced toward the mirror and thought she saw a figure stepping out of her room. The next morning, she made up her mind to leave. The house no longer felt safe, but when she saw Ben sitting quietly on the porch, lost in his own thoughts, something stopped her. He reminded her of her father, and she could not walk away. Determined to uncover the truth, Caroline took photos of everything she had found in the attic and showed them to Luke. She also asked about the previous nurse, but Luke admitted he did not know why she had left, so he took Caroline to meet her in person. The The former nurse, Hallie, was now working at a nursing home. After hearing Caroline's story, she explained that she had quit because the house carried a disturbing presence. She also revealed that Martin and Grace, the former owners, had both died of strokes not long after selling the house to Violet and Ben. To Hai, that was no coincidence. She believed they must have discovered something terrifying inside the house, and that Ben's condition might be connected to the same thing. Before they parted ways, Hai warned Caroline to leave before she started believing in the magic herself, because in her eyes, Violet was a dangerous woman. On the way back, Caroline asked Luke to stop at the gas station she had visited earlier. She remembered the red brick dust and realized that the people there also believed in hoodoo. From there, she went to the house behind the station and once again saw the same red dust. Inside, she met the blind woman again. This time, Caroline asked about the recording she had found, the one labeled as a sacrifice ritual. The woman explained that it was the most powerful form of hoodoo ever discovered by Papa Justify. It was believed to have the ability to protect someone from death, but only by drawing from the life of another. However, Justify and Cecile were said to have been gone before they could ever use it. At that moment, everything became clear to Caroline. She became convinced that Violet was the one behind what was happening to Ben. She believed Violet had mastered the ritual and was planning to use him to extend her own life. That very night, Caroline decided she had to save him. But when she returned to the house, the recording was gone from her suitcase. Realizing she needed protection, she went to the storage room, took the red brick dust, and spread it across the entrance of her bedroom before covering it with a carpet. Then she set a trap. She gave Violet a reason to enter her room, pretending there was a leak in the ceiling. It was a test to see whether Violet would be affected by the red dust. And even though it was hidden beneath the carpet, Violet somehow sensed it was there. That night, Caroline had already prepared sugar cubes mixed with a mild sedative. But things did not go as planned because Violet wanted plain tea instead. Trying to keep things under control, Caroline insisted that she did not believe Ben had been cursed in the attic. She had gone up there many times and nothing had ever happened to her. Violet, however, remained calm and pointed out something unsettling. Caroline had not been affected simply because she did not believe in hoodoo. Not long after, the power suddenly went out. As Violet stepped away to get candles, Caroline quickly poured the sedative into her tea. This time it worked. Violet drank it and soon collapsed. As she fell, she was still clutching a torn piece of a protection spell, as if trying to stop Ben from being taken out of the house. Caroline grabbed the paper and rushed to find the recording of the sacrifice ritual. She eventually found it inside Violet's bedroom. Knowing she did not have much time, she hurried to carry Ben to her car. But when she reached the gate, it was locked. She tried forcing it open again and again, but it would not budge. With no other choice, she attempted to find another way out. Unfortunately, the car slipped and got stuck. At the same time, Violet regained consciousness. Now armed with a shotgun, Violet began hunting her. To buy herself some time, Caroline had been inside the storage room, then escaped using a small boat at the lake behind the house. After getting away, Caroline went straight to Luke's apartment. She told him everything. How Violet had tried to kill her and how Ben desperately needed help. But just moments later, Violet called Luke and twisted the story, making it sound like Caroline had harmed Ben. While Luke was still on the phone, something else caught Caroline's attention. On his desk were multiple photos of her. Inside his drawer, she also found Papa Justify's ring and the skeleton key. Before she could react, Luke suddenly appeared and attacked her. That was when the truth came out. Luke had been working with Violet all along. Together, they had set a trap for her. Caroline was captured and taken back to the house, tied up and completely helpless. Now everything made sense. Caroline realized that she was the real target, not Ben. Violet planned to use her for the ritual, and Luke was not just helping, he was a follower of the same dark practice. Violet told Luke that the ritual could not begin until Ben was found. Seizing the moment, Caroline revealed that Ben was hidden in the storage room. It was part of her plan to separate them, giving herself a chance to escape back to her room where the red brick dust still protected the entrance. She hoped to regroup and find a way to fight back while saving Ben. As Violet went to retrieve Ben, Caroline made her move. She climbed up the garden fence to the second floor and scattered red dust to block Luke's path. Then she rushed upstairs, but when she got there, Violet was already waiting. A struggle broke out, and in the end, Caroline managed to bring Violet down. With no time to waste, Caroline grabbed the house phone and called for emergency help, asking for police and an ambulance, saying that multiple people were injured. She also called Jill, letting her know that she was in serious trouble. Violet made her way upstairs using the lift and cut the phone line. With no way to call for help, Caroline rushed up to the attic. What she found there was terrifying. The room had already been prepared for a ritual, filled with candles and mirrors arranged all around. Realizing she was about sacrifice, Caroline quickly remembered the torn piece of the protection spell. Using sulfur chalk, strands of her hair, and even her own blood, she drew the symbol and stepped inside it. Moments later, Violet entered the attic and slowly crawled toward her. But this time, Caroline was not afraid. She believed she was protected. Then, Violet smiled. The truth was far worse than Caroline expected. The spell was never meant to keep danger out. It was meant to trap whatever was inside the circle. And now the ritual could finally begin. Everything that had happened since Caroline arrived had been carefully planned. Every strange detail, every mystery, all of it was designed to slowly make her believe in hoodoo. Because without belief, the ritual would never work. And now Caroline had crossed that line. Luke started playing the recording of Justify reciting the sacrifice ritual. At the same time, Violet placed a large mirror in front of Caroline. In its reflection, different faces began to appear, shifting from Grace to Violet to Cecile until the glass finally cracked. Not long after, Caroline regained consciousness. But something was different. She began smoking just like Violet always did. And then something even more disturbing became clear. She and Luke were no longer calling each other by their own names. They were calling each other Justify and Cecile. The truth was revealed. The ritual was not about moving a soul. It was about swapping them. 90 years ago, Justify and Cecile had mastered hoodoo. Tired of being abused by their masters, they used the ritual to exchange their souls with Martin and Grace while they were still children. That meant the ones who were lynched and burned that night were not Justify and Cecile, but the real Martin and Grace. After that, they took revenge on Thorp and his family. Somehow they brought his empire to ruin, leaving him overwhelmed by despair as both he and his wife met a tragic end. From there, Justify and Cecile lived on inside Martin and Grace's bodies until they grew old. Then, in 1962, they repeated the ritual again, transferring themselves into the bodies of a young couple, Violet and Ben. Every step had been planned, and the cycle continued. Now they had moved on once more. Justify had taken over Luke's body, and Cecile had taken Caroline's. It was the perfect way to keep their secret hidden while they continued living forever. Trapped inside Violet's body, the real Caroline could only beg silently to be freed. The next morning, the police and ambulance arrived. Luke and the real Caroline, now trapped in their old bodies, were taken away, both appearing as stroke victims. Meanwhile, Justify and Cecile acted as if they had no idea what had happened. Not long after Jill arrived, worried about the call she had received, the person standing before her looked like Caroline, acted like Caroline, and reassured her that everything was fine. But the real Caroline, trapped inside Violet's body, could do nothing. She could only watch, unable to speak, unable to move, fully aware of the nightmare she was now living. In the end, Justify explained that Ben and Violet had grown fond of Caroline and had decided to leave the house to her. And as Luke and the real Caroline were taken away to the hospital, the two of them could only stare at each other, silently, realizing just how tragic their fate had become. So, the moral of the story is never take a high-paying job in a creepy swamp house with no mirrors, because you might lose your body and your paycheck at the same